Welcome to my podcast, Today's Dream, Tomorrow's Reality. My name is Vicki Poole. I'm a master transformational coach and hypnotist specializing in habit change. And this podcast is sponsored by the Enlightened Peach. And it's all about embracing our mosaic life. Well, some of you may ask, what is a mosaic life anyway? Well, it's recognizing that all the pieces of our life, the good, the bad, the indifferent, have all come together to make us who we are. Change any one thing, and we are different. With that in mind, I invite you to embrace your perceived imperfections and celebrate who you are. This podcast is unedited and raw, just like life. And I am your host, and I have a special guest that I'll introduce in just a moment. But before I do, I would love to ask you to do me a solid, and that is to leave a comment. And remember to like, subscribe, and share. So now let's get started. So this lovely lady here, we know each other somewhat because we have been involved in several different groups together. And she has been so amazing with showing up for herself. And so it was like recently I said, you've got to get on my podcast because I really want to get to know Jean better. This is Jean Green, and I'm going to let her introduce herself just a little bit, and then we'll just get into this conversation because I know her on a certain level, but not on another, and we want to remedy that.
Thank you so much, Vicki, for the invite. And I am totally delighted to be here. I am Jean Green. Like you said, I'm in Sacramento, California. And a little bit about me. Well, my prized possessions are three adult children and three little grandkids. And I am a storyteller. I teach storytelling workshops or facilitate storytelling workshops and teach storytelling classes. I'm in Toastmasters. And one of my side joys is experimenting with a basic chocolate chip cookie recipe for my grandkids just to see if they can decide what's in it and what's not.
Okay, cool.
And I have I do a few other things, but that's kind of on the short who I am.
Yeah. Well, that sounds amazing. It really does. I want to come and try out the chocolate chip cookies myself. It is a weakness, of mine. So you'll have to fill me in on how that goes. Maybe I'll take your recipe and try to use it myself. And so, like I said, I know you do the storytelling, and I've had you as a guest on in my Facebook group because of that. And it's fascinating because I love to tell stories, but I don't know that I do it in the same way, but I love telling stories. But I'd love to kind of go back a little bit and learn a little bit about you growing up. Where were you born?
I was born in a deep South,
Hmm.
and
How
one of my
deep?
sons, real deep, like Jim
Because I'm in
Crow.
Georgia, I'm in Georgia,
I'm in Mississippi.
Mississippi. Okay.
Mississippi, yes. Many years ago, and and most of my stories about my childhood and growing up. And although it was not the ideal situation of growing up, but the family was always together, and family means so much to me. So the things that went on around didn't kind of penetrate the family. The family was like this nucleus, and it was so even though we were in the deep, as one of my sons like to say, Jim Jim Crow South, was just a family that stuck together. And I wish families did that more often now.
Yeah. Well, speaking of families, what's interesting to me is now I don't know what time frame that was, but years ago, one house would hold the several generations of families so that they did have this connection right? This
Yes.
nucleus of, grandparents, parents, grandchildren, and all of that were connected. And now sometimes I know people that I meet, they only see their grandparents like once or twice a year. They may not even see their children very often. And it's definitely a very disconnected kind of relationship nowadays as opposed to what it used to be. And so I would kind of like to see it kind of going back to that place of where the families were more connected.
It would be nice. And I feel blessed because my grandparents lived with us. So I had the grandparents and cousins were, well, two cousins my mom raised, they were like brothers because they were there. They just lived with us. And their parents lived, as they say, in hollering distance away, but they just wanted to live with us. And so they
Interesting.
did. And it was, which was good for me because I was my mom's only child. My dad had three kids. So, and he and my mom kind of, I guess, I guess he just wanted a younger woman. So my my siblings were a generation older. As a matter of fact, my my oldest niece is 2 years older than I am.
Mm,
So, but I spent more time with my nieces and nephews than I did with my sisters and brothers. And I had one sister that lived right down the road because she was already married by the time I got old enough to know.
hmm.
And when she decided that she wanted to move, I can still feel the pain of having her leave
Oh,
to
wow.
move away. So, yeah. So, and I think that's probably why I became so close to my cousins because the one sister that was there left. And my brother, my oldest brother, he would always tease and say, "Yeah, the year you were born, there was not enough room, so I left home." And I never came.
So what was the age difference?
17 years between myself and my brother, and my oldest sister was 18 and a half, 19 years.
Okay.
Mhm.
See, I have a sister that's 2 years older than me, but I have a sister that's 9 years younger than me and a brother that's 11 years younger than me. So not quite as big a difference, but definitely, they were a lot younger. So I was kind of their second mom taking care of them and kind of thing.
Right, yes.
Yeah, yeah. So, if you were to just kind of take a moment and think back to when you were growing up and everything, what would you think of as your favorite memory when you were growing up?
I
And I know
have
if you're like me, it's hard to find one, but go
It
ahead.
is. It really is hard to find one. Uh, One, and it's, can I give you two?
Yeah, give me two. I'm ready. We've
Okay.
got time.
One favorite memory is sitting with my granddad while he told stories. I just
Oh.
love sitting, listening to him talk about our ancestors and, his past and his childhood. That is really my most favorite
So when your grandfather, you said your father or your grandfather?
grandfather.
So when your grandfather was telling stories, he wasn't just telling stories, he was teaching you your legacy.
Yes,
Oh,
absolutely.
I love that.
Yes, it was
Yeah.
like a history
Yeah.
in the form of a personal story.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And then, I have favorite stories about favorite memories about my grandmother. But the other favorite story is one of my cousins that my mom, quote unquote, raised was he loved comic books. So when he would go home to his mom and come back, he would bring comic books. Now, I really don't understand this. But I could read the comic book. It made no sense to me. And
Hmm.
he was 3 years older than I think. but he could sit there and he would read that comic book to me, and I could totally see the pictures. I could understand it all. So I loved having him sit there reading the comic books. And my mom would even read the we used to call them the
The
funnies.
funnies. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I
Uh-huh.
know the funnies.
Yeah. But I don't know. I could read them and it's like, really? What are they talking about? But others could read them to me. And then this same cousin had a had a bicycle that he wanted to teach me to ride. And he said, it's easy. You just have to fall and skin your knees and you'll have it. I was stubborn. I didn't like pain. It's like, nope, I am not going to fall and skin my knees. So I kept trying to ride and refused to fall to skin my knees. So finally he said, well, it's your choice. You can fall and skin your knees and learn to ride, but I'm not going to ride you on my handlebars anymore. And he wouldn't. And I refused to fall and skin my knees. So that is another favorite memory of mine.
Yeah. So did you ever learn to ride the bicycle?
I learned when I was 19 and
Really? You are
I
stubborn. You're more stubborn than me, and I thought I was pretty doggone stubborn.
no, I didn't want to fall and I don't ride bikes, but I went into the military and these friends wanted to go bike riding down to the park and to the beach, and they knew I love water. So, and they didn't know I didn't ride bikes. So they said, okay, we're going to rent these bikes and we're going and we're going to do this. We're going to have a picnic. Oh, sounds so wonderful. And I said, but I don't ride bikes. And of course, they just fell out laughing. Who didn't know how to ride bikes? And I had to stay home while they went out and had fun.
Oh,
But I took myself over to the rental shop, rented myself a bike, and for it was about 5 or 6 hours in the parking lot. I rode around and they said the same thing. Oh, you just have to fall and skin your knees and you'll be fine. I am not falling skinny. So anyway, I rode around that parking lot for probably at least 5 hours until I could ride. I rode the bike back to the rental shop. I had not fallen and skinned my knees. I took it back and said, there, I know how to ride a bike. That's it. I'm done.
oh goodness.
Yeah.
So, what branch of the military were you in?
Marine Corps.
Marine. Okay, what'd you do?
I was in the recruit what was it called? It's where they bring the recruits in
Hmm.
and they fingerprint them. And if a fingerprint wasn't clear enough, it would come back and I had to go through, process it, call the recruit back in to be re-fingerprinted. Or if there was some other question on the form, I had to go through that. So they call it admin service. So it
Okay,
was, yeah. Hmm.
very cool. So, how long were you in the military?
Just 2 years.
Okay, so you enlisted?
Yes.
Okay,
Hmm.
all right. So, why did you pick that branch?
It picked me.
Okay.
It was my family, well, my mother said that I had to, she said, you got to get an education. So when you graduate, you got to go get an education. Well, we were, as some folks say, we were poor. We were so poor we couldn't afford the OR. So it was like, how am I going to college? She said, I don't care. You are going because education is the key. And that was the that was the thing that ran through my head from junior year through senior. And she had me, applying to these colleges. It's like, but how are we going to afford it? In any case, 2 months before graduation from my senior year, a Marine Corps recruiter came to the school and our counselor had us all go into the library and it's like, okay, if anybody, whoever passes this test have a choice of going into the military. And I thought, well, okay, I'll take the test, but I have no desire to go into the military. I had a cousin in the military, two of my uncles had served, but I just had no desire. And I today to this day say it was divine intervention.
Mm-hmm.
Because after the test, when I got the test, I thought, this is a joke. This is not really a test. There was a lot of math questions, and math was my favorite subject. So it was like, this is not a test. And later that afternoon, the counselor came and pulled me out, whatever class I was in. And I panicked. I thought, a counselor come and get him. What did I do?
What'd I
Okay,
do?
what did I do? So I was moping behind her, and she said, come on. And I get to her office, and the recruiter is in there, and she said, you were the only female that passed this test. And I thought, now I think I probably would have thought, if my parents had not raised me to not say foul words, I would have simply said, that ain't true, in a different language,
Yeah.
because that's no test. There was no challenge there. So I don't know what this is all about. But in any case, the guy started talking about, have you ever thought of going? No, no. Then he said, well, would you like to go? I said, no, I don't want to go. I said, plus, my parents would not let me go to the military. I know they wouldn't. He said, okay, so why don't we just go and ask them? It's like, go. He said, I can take you home after school. It's like, I no, I don't know you. I'm not,
Stranger danger.
no. I said, oh, and he went on talking, and the counselor said, it'll be okay. I said, okay, my cousin is here. Can she go with us? He said, yeah, sure. So we went. I just knew, I knew, even if my mom and dad said, okay, I knew my granddad would say, no, because he was like the village counselor, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
And so we drove up, and this counselor started talking, and I just moseyed myself right on in the house. It's like, okay, you guys have it. And then my mom called me out, and she's like standing there, and I'm thinking, okay, I know they did. And my granddad started talking to me, and this counselor said, not the counselor, the recruiter said, oh yeah, if you go in and you stay for 2 years, then there's you can have money for college education. And that was like, bingo. My mom always wanted me to go to college. This was a way of doing it. But I still didn't think they would approve, but they did. I went into the military 2 years. Hindsight is, I wish I had stayed longer.
Really?
Be-
Why do you say that?
because the training, the education that I got just being in that environment was so strong. And in the world that I grew up in, it was black and white. But in the military, there was an array of all ethnic groups.
Mm-hmm.
It was such a learning experience, and I learned that what my granddad had always said was true, because he would always say, I would ask these questions, well, why this and why that, and why do they do this? And he would say, I don't know, but just remember, God created them just like he created us. We are no better than they are. They are no better than we are. And when I left going into the military, he reminded me of that, is that everybody is the same. He said, so you remember, you just do what's right. And that carried with me. And I met so many wonderful people. And I'm sure that added to why I really like people.
Mm-hmm.
I like learning the history and who they are deep down inside, because we are, as long as I do what I know is right,
Mm-hmm.
people are people.
Yeah.
And maybe that's why storytelling has evolved in me, because stories bring us together through that emotional connection. We
Yeah.
are people, we are there's a connection between us. So,
Yeah. So thinking back about your 2 years in the military, if you were to be able to look at something and say, this is something in particular that changed me, changed my ideas or my thoughts of the world or whatever, is there anything like that that happened in that 2 years?
well, one thing happened is growing up as an only child, just my cousins around,
Mm-hmm.
and being overly protective by my mom, I was really sensitive. But there's no place for sensitivity or being a drama queen, so to speak,
Mm-hmm.
if you want to be successful in the military. So I learned from my next door um, barracks mate, bunk mate, I
Mm-hmm.
forget what they call now, because there was one, and we became really good friends. She would always say, if you have feeling made out of tissue paper, take them off your shirt sleeve and stick them in your pocket, because I'm going to be me. And just hearing that all the time, it's like that made so much sense. If I'm not getting into my emotions, then I can listen to what you say. You don't have to agree with me. I don't
Mm-hmm.
have to agree with you, but there's a message and a lesson from both ways. And I heard it said once that if I have an idea and you have an idea, if we blend those together, now we have three ideas. So that one, I think, segment probably was the one thing, because as far as respect and all, I got that from home, but it was
Mm-hmm.
that taking that emotional piece and putting it in its place to be able to listen and appreciate what others, who others were and where they were.
Yeah. So if I'm understanding you correctly, it's like when something would come up, you could take the emotional charge out of it so that you could listen without wanting to fix things or argue or whatever. Is that what you
Yes,
mean? Okay.
absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely.
There's
Mhm.
some people these days that need that skill. I am blown away with the amount of people that as soon as you have an opposing opinion of them, they hunker down and trying to convince you of their opinion and instead saying, "Oh, that's interesting. Why do you feel that way?" Or "That's interesting. We can agree to disagree." It's
Ex-
no, it's
ex-
like, let me change your mind because you're wrong.
ex- And what if both are right?
Yeah.
Based on where you're standing and where I am standing, we could both be right.
Yeah.
So I think if we could look at it from that viewpoint and then come together and say, okay, I'm right over here, you're right there. But if we come to the middle, what's right?
Yeah.
That's really right. Okay, so
Yeah. Well, I never had any military training. Actually, when I decided, I was going to go to college and I went to the college fair kind of thing. They had it at the mall and you went to see all the different colleges. I remember seeing some military stuff, but I just skirted right past that, didn't even think anything about it, right? It never occurred to me in my wildest dreams to do military anything. So I applaud you. And the only reason you felt like that test was not a test was because you were so damn smart. Because otherwise, other girls would have been passing the test too. So remember
I
that.
I guess, but I still say it was divine intervention,
Yeah.
because
Well, it was still
I would.
divine intervention, but I'm saying you need to give yourself kudos that it's not just divine intervention. Divine intervention was that God made you that smart. So math being a strong subject for you probably sets you apart from a lot of the other girls. Because
Oh,
one of the things that I remember growing up was one of the things they always said is boys know about math
that's
but
true.
not girls. Math and science was a boys thing. And, and you would just get pigeonholed into girls don't know how to do that. And, so it's really cool when I would see a female that was really good at math or science. And I think, oh, that's
Mm,
amazing.
yeah. Okay. I guess that's a way of looking at it.
That's right. So give yourself some kudos for that. Pat
Okay.
yourself on the back a little bit. Celebrate that because it's pretty significant.
Mm, yeah, it was.
Yeah. So are your parents still living?
No, they're not. No. Long time gone. Yeah.
Okay.
Mhm. Yeah.
What about your siblings?
My siblings,
Hmm.
my my brother is gone. I have one brother and two sisters.
Okay.
My sisters are in their 90s and
Really? Oh,
they're
wow.
still they're still
Still cranking it out.
yes.
And you said you have how many grandchildren?
Three.
Three. Okay. Well, see, I'm envious. I don't have any grandchildren right now, so it would be so cool to have grandchildren. And who knows if I ever will, but I'm always holding out. But I love kids. I love babies, and so you get me around one. My children's father used to pick at me all the time because he'd say, "Oh my gosh," he said, "as soon as we get around a baby, it's oh, ah." Oh, that's okay. I like babies. Okay. Um,
They're so
so so a lot of the stuff that you're doing now is the storytelling, right?
yes,
All right.
absolutely.
So tell us a story.
Oh, you want to start?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll tell you. Okay.
All
Now,
right.
I said to you
Pick a
that
good one now.
I said to you that most of the stories were from my childhood.
Mm-hmm.
But since I was not thinking of that, how about I tell you one from right out of the military into a school just before work? How about that
All
one?
right. Sounds good. I'm excited. Let's hear it.
Okay. Okay. S- And I names have been changed to protect the innocent.
Protect the innocent. Okay. Felt like we're doing some kind of police thing here, but go ahead.
No, and it's short and I don't I don't know why it sticks with me, but the memory is I I did go to school right out of military, out of service. I first tried to find a job and I couldn't. I stayed with one of my cousins that lived in Tennessee. Still couldn't find a job, so okay, let me go to this business college. But she lived a long ways away. So I found a hotel that was down the street from the school. And down the street doesn't mean like 2 blocks, but it was walking distance from the
Mm-hmm.
school. And I went, and this was a long time ago. So it was $50, $50 a week to stay, to get a room that had a kitchen.
Mm-hmm.
And it was close enough. I didn't have the brains to really go check out the hotel. It was just, I have to start school on Monday. I have to have somewhere to stay. So I went. The lady at the front desk was nice. She, we got on the elevator to go up to the third floor. I do not like Alfred Hitchcock, okay?
Okay.
So get on this elevator, and it was straight out of Alfred Hitchcock.
What?
Doors clang, and you could see the wall as this elevator crawled up. Get to the third floor. We walked down the hall and she opened the door. The kitchenette had dust all in it. The bed was sitting on, way back then, sodas or Pepsis came in wooden crates.
Mm-hmm.
So the bed was sitting on wooden crates. But the linen,
Meaning the mattress was on wooden crates or the bed frame was on?
the bed frame was on
Okay.
wooden crates.
Okay.
And so it was fine. But what I found out after a couple of days, uh, this is not PC, but it was a hooker hotel. So so I would go out
It
to
was one of those
school.
hotels you pay by the hour. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, 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 yes. Only I was paying by the weeks. I would go out, go to school. I would come back in, lock my door, jam the door, and not come out until the next morning. And the lady at the front desk, elderly lady, she was really, really sweet. But it's like, I need to get out of here because once I would go up, I was afraid to come down again. So I had the class with this young lady, and she slept a lot in class. So there was no interaction between us. But this one day, she was sitting just one chair behind me, and she leaned over and she tapped me on the shoulder and she said, "You live in that hotel, don't you?" I thought, how do you know that? Yeah, I do. She said, "How would you like to rent an apartment, share an apartment with me?" Now, I don't know her either, so I don't know what kind of apartment.
Mm-hmm.
Said, where?" And she described it. It wasn't that far from the school. I said, "How do you know about this apartment?" And so she said, "Well, my cousin lived down the street. I live with my cousin now, and she want me out of her house. And I need someone to share an apartment with me." I just thought an apartment would be safer than
That
the
hotel.
hotel that I was in. So it's like, okay. I went over, checked it out. It was really a nice, it was small, but bedrooms upstairs. It was really nice. So I moved in, but I was broke. I was a broke ex-military veteran going to school. So I had to eat, I had a box of raisin and a Pepsi for dinner every evening because my military money went to pay the school expense. And that was fine. I never ate very much anyway, but on the weekend, I would just go home because it was like hour away, 45 minutes. So my mom would pack up food and I would bring it back thinking I got food for the week. The first time she did it, now my roommate, as I said, she was sleeping in class. That's because she had a sleeping disorder and she didn't sleep at night. So she roamed around at night. My
Uh,
mom packed up this food. I came home. I put it in the refrigerator. I said, "Do not bother my food. Don't touch it." And she said, "Did your mom send enough for me?" I said, "No, she didn't. She sent enough so I have it for 3 days." She said, "Okay, I'm not going to bother it." I went up, went to bed, came down the next morning, expecting to grab a bite of something. I opened the refrigerator, and nothing was there.
oh my gosh, she ate it all in one day?
She ate it all. And I screamed at her. And I said, "Did you eat my food? I told you not to bother it." And she just went, I was hungry. I couldn't sleep. "Ooh, your mama cooked so good. Next time, have her send enough for me." I was so angry. I'm
Yeah.
not a crier. I don't cry that easily. But I felt like crying because I was hungry. I expected. So I left, went to school, didn't speak to her at school, came home, did my usual routine. The next weekend, I went home, brought food back. I said, "Okay, don't touch my food now, okay?" "Okay, I promise I won't touch your food." Well, I got up
Mm-hmm.
the next morning and there was the plates still in the refrigerator. And I opened up the cover and the food was gone. She said, "Well, I left you a little bit." How did you leave me a little bit when you ate everything? That's just one side of a piece of cake. That's, she said, well, but I love you a little bit. I told you to have your mom send enough for me. So, lesson learned. I would go home. I would only bring food back, and it's the one that I didn't get poisoned. I would only bring food back that I could take upstairs and stick under my bed. And she would say, I know you brought food. You're not going to share it with me? I said, go down to the refrigerator. Don't you see it? It's in the refrigerator. There's nothing in the refrigerator. I said, oh, I guess you couldn't sleep last night and you ate it all, didn't you? So, long story longer, I stopped bringing food home for my mom. I would eat enough while I was there and only bring food back that I could safely, well, today is probably not safely, under my bed and eat during the
Well, I'm
week.
surprised she didn't go and get it while you were at school or something.
She didn't know I put it
Oh,
under
okay.
my bed. She would
Mm,
have. She would have. So,
yeah.
so she really was a nice person, but she just didn't sleep and she would eat other people's food. And
Yeah.
we ended up with two other roommates and she would go through their food too. So,
So
and I
she
tried
was
to warn them.
a girl without boundaries.
Yes, yes, yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's just a little, that's just a
Yeah.
little, um, yeah. Well,
Oh,
I'll do my childhoods later because that,
yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
Well, I
Mhm.
love that story, but we've all had somebody that didn't respect our boundaries at some point with things like that. I had a roommate one time that um the funny thing with her was that she didn't steal my food, but what she would do was when we first moved in together and I had my son, I was recently divorced, we were rooming together, and so I would cook dinner because, I've got a son, so I've got to cook a meal, right? And
Yeah.
so she would come in a little time after I cooked, and I'd say, I made this if you want to eat with us and everything. So she'd say, okay. And then one day she came in, and I hadn't cooked dinner because my son and I had, and he was just little, he's probably a year and a half, something like that. We
Mhm.
went out to eat. And she came home and she said, where's dinner? I said, what do you mean, where's dinner? She said, did you not cook dinner? And I said, no, we went out. She said, well, what am I going to have for dinner? I said, do you realize we are not married? You are not my spouse. I do not have to cook for you. So I suggest you figure out something else. But it was like, it never occurred to me that by cooking dinner and inviting her to eat with us, that she all of a sudden developed this expectation. So she wouldn't get something on the way home because she'd come home and eat with us.
You had it prepared for her.
Yeah.
Oh
So
dear.
things kind of went south after that. We didn't get along as well because she was very upset that I was not going to cater to her because then I was kind of ticked about it,
Yeah,
because you're not going to demand that I cook food for you.
right.
I'm cooking for me and my son, and I can ask you to be part of it, but I'll be doggone if I'm going to have somebody demand that I do that for them. So we didn't stay roommates for very much longer after that.
That would be kind of hurtful and disrespectful for
Yeah.
her to even think that, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah, and then she would even like when I would go buy groceries, we were supposed to split the groceries. So then she
Yeah.
would go onto the grocery list on the receipt and she'd say, "Oh, I don't think I'll eat any of that this time. I don't think I'll eat any of that this time. And this is probably for your son, so I'm not going to pay for any of that." And she started where she was marking out. So it became this big deal, right? So we parted ways not too long after all of that. So it was very strange, but yeah, so we've all had someone who does some kind of weird thing, right? And she was a few years older than me, so it was like, what? I don't get it, but that's what happens sometimes. You get two people, especially two women, into a space. Sometimes there's like, who's going to be the queen bee, kind of thing, right?
That's right. That's
Yeah.
right. And she took the role of Queen Bee.
Yep, she did until I said nope. And then it was done then.
Did she have sisters, perhaps, that she had
To
taken
be
the
honest with you, I do not remember because that was so long ago. I don't remember her even talking about family.
Mm,
It was, it was, I guess it was just one of those very superficial things. And to be honest with you, I don't even remember how we knew each other. I just
mm,
know we became roommates. And that's what happened. So yeah,
interesting.
I know. I know.
Mates are very, very interesting. It really,
Yes. Yeah.
mm,
Yeah. And it's interesting because no matter how well you know someone, when you become roommates, it changes the dynamics of thing because there's a lot different from like people that are dating, and then when they get married and they are in this space together, it's like all of a sudden you realize all these things that the other person has expectations on and everything. So it's kind of interesting how all of that kind of pans out, right?
it is.
Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah.
Those little things that don't show up
Yeah.
when you're spending more time together.
Yeah, and one of the things that a lot of people say that about relationships is the things that you thought were so adorable about someone when you first start dating them, those are the same things that drive you bonkers later on, right?
I agree with that.
Yeah. Oh, that's so cute. Well, not so much now. So you're not married now, right?
No, my husband's been gone for 10 years. So,
Okay. So you're
yeah.
a widow.
Yes,
All
yes.
right. So
Mhm.
did you date much after he was gone, or were you just like not gonna?
No, I haven't dated at all because after, I mean, his death was so sudden
What was
that
it?
cancer,
Okay.
cancer, yeah, he was diagnosed with terminal, no, no, he was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer. And they said, oh, with treatment, you probably have 12 to 18 months. And about 2.5 months from that day, he was gone. So
Wow.
it
Yeah.
was quick. So it was a period of adjustment. And then it was, he was a great guy, but those little things that we were married for 43 years.
Oh, wow. Bless you.
Yeah. So it was like, oh, so I got me some me time now.
Yeah. Yeah.
So no, I haven't dated because it take a lot of time and a lot of energy developing relationships and right now I just want to be selfish and
Do you?
develop a relationship with me. So
Yeah. Yeah. I feel you.
yeah.
My children's father passed away from a massive heart attack.
Oh,
And when my daughter was 7 and she's 30. And so it was like one morning he just boop, gone, right? So very, very strange. Like she was 7, my son was 16. And the interesting thing is, for several years after that, if I even thought about going on a date or anything like that, I felt like I was cheating on him, you
mm,
know?
yeah.
And after a while, I got over that part, but then there's like part of me sometimes, oh, it'd be so nice to have a relationship and everything. But then it's like, hmm, maybe not, So I kind of fluctuate back and forth between I want to have a relationship, and other times it's like, I ain't got time for that.
I go through that too
Yeah.
until it's dinner time and I think if I was in a relationship or married again, I can just hear, what's for dinner? I don't like cooking. So it's like, don't ask me what's for dinner, but it would be nice to have to be, I guess, be in a relationship, but it just take a lot of time, a lot of
Yeah.
energy. And I'm not sure if there's anyone out there that will just accept me as who I am, because I'm not changing.
Yeah.
That's
Well,
Now,
Just to tell
yeah,
you there is, you just got to filter through the things to get to them, right?
okay.
Um, and that's what my sister tells me all the time. She says, Vicky, you only feel that way because you haven't met that person yet.
Uh,
And that's why, because the last guy I dated was a nice guy, but doggone if it didn't feel like a burden. You
okay.
know, oh my gosh, I gotta call you, I gotta do this, and all that stuff, right?
Mhm.
And I like my alone time. And there were times that he wanted to infringe on my alone time, and it would be like, no, this is for me. And he
Uh,
didn't quite get it. But I think when I see people together that have relationships to where they have this ebb and flow to it, and they have this common goal of like people that like me being a coach and a hypnotist and doing all this stuff with Facebook and all this stuff, and you're doing the same kind of stuff too. So I feel like if there was somebody that they saw the value in that
yeah,
stuff and they wanted to be like, yes, let's do this together. Let's enjoy this. Let's expand together. Then that would be totally different.
that's right. It
Yeah.
would.
So I think what happens for me, and I don't know if this was what happens for you, is I base the fact of whether or not a relationship is good for me on the things that have been in the past.
Yes,
You know,
I do. Yes.
Yeah, yeah. And so
Yeah.
every now and then, like I'm kind of toying with, getting back out there and dating. Um, I even joined the singles challenge, but I didn't really do it. So but like I said, every now and then, so I feel like I'm saying to God, the universe, okay, I'm open. If the person will show up that could be unconditionally loving me,
Hmm.
and we have this common thread in our lives that enable us to be supportive of one another, to encourage one another, and to actually have these common threads and these common goals in our lives. Not that we have to spend 24/7 with each other. We still have our time apart, right? But to
Hmm.
have that common thread there, I'm open to that happening. Now, whether it does or not, that's not up to me, right?
Right. Right.
So I'm just saying, okay, if it's when the time is right, if the time becomes right,
Hmm.
then they will come. And I just ask God to give me the knowledge to recognize them.
There you go. That it's like, okay, it's gonna have to rain down from heaven. Okay, Gene, this is the right one because I was in, I don't know, don't quite fit
I
everything
know.
on my list here. So
I know. Let me get out my checklist and check them off. And they didn't, this one's not right. So, you know, so it's funny when you think about relationships and everything, right?
it
And when
is.
you get to, I don't even know how old you are, but when you get to our ages, it's like, I've got clients that'll tell me, and they're a little bit older than I am, and they're married. And one lady told me, she said, "You're not dating, are you?" And I said, "No." And she said, "Well, good." She said, "Because if anything happens to my husband, I am not getting another one because that one took way too much work." And she'll tell me all this stuff. And I was like, okay.
And one of my sons asked me once, he said, Mom, you think you'll ever get married again? I said, well, I'll put it to you this way. If God says yes, it's done. But if he says yes, he've already smoothed out everything, and I don't have, we will be a perfect match. And it'll have to be from God because I'm not out there looking. So
Hmm.
it's going to come from. So
Yep. Yeah, I told my sister one day, I said, at this point, it would have to be somebody that stopped by to sell me something or somebody that came to repair something.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. We do have a kindred spirit here. So, what is the thing that really lights you up right now when you think about your life and the how it can be? What's the thing that really gets your heart singing?
there are two things that make my heart smile, as I like
Mm-hmm.
to say. The first one is the storytelling and teaching others how to pull a memory from their past and develop it into a story and see how the connection from theirs connects to someone else. They can be
Mm-hmm.
totally different and totally different sides of the world, but how there's connection there. That make me my heart smile. And the other thing is when I can sit with a lady, and because of the things I've been through, I can share with them and help walk them through the process. Because I am way over 50, okay? Way over 50. But I I find that women, and including myself, being married and raising kids, and I went to school half the time and just the whole work, that the my main passionate goals got pushed to the back because there just wasn't enough time
Mm-hmm.
to do that, take care of my kids, work full time, take care of my, or spend time with my husband. So the real me was just kind of packed down,
Mm-hmm.
and this substitute me rose up to be able to take care of the life things.
Right.
And I see that over and over and over, to the point there's sometimes ladies just become depressed and don't know what to do. They know there's something they want to do. They know the goals and dreams they had, but they just don't know how to reconnect with them.
Mm-hmm.
And so what brings me joy is when I can sit with them and we can walk through the process of going from, a, I guess, renewing those dreams
Mm-hmm.
and look at them, because sometime we could have had a dream back then or a goal, but now because of things we've gone through, that's not really what we want now, but it could be a part of it. So
Right.
let's find out what it is that you really want. What is it that make you smile? What is it that you would do even if you didn't get paid? What would
Mm-hmm.
make you happy? And that bring me joy when I can sit and at the end of a session, they can say, I can see this, I can think about this. This gives me something to work on. So that just make my heart smile.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. And Um, when we're younger and we have goals and dreams, a lot of times they're not even our goals and dreams. It's what people have told us that when you get to this stage of life, this is what your life's supposed to look like.
Exactly.
The two kids, or two and a half kids, and the dog in the yard, the picket fence, the house, the cars, and all of those things.
Mhm.
But the things that are in here, we've just squished
Yes.
down, right? And
Mhm.
so the beauty, I think, of as you get older and you're more open to exploring that,
Yes.
and recognizing that those things that you wanted so much back then that you longed for, you didn't even really long for them,
Right. That's
and now you can get in touch with that longing, that what you really want to do and how you want to be and the experiences that you want to have in your life. It's a very delicious thing as you get older and you can get around people that encourage you to explore all of that.
that is true. That is
Because a lot of people don't have that. They have the people that want you to do exactly what they've done all their life, and they want you to stay in that little box, right? So that's one of the reasons why I love like the podcast, and I love Facebook groups, and being able to connect with people that may not be in your backyard. They're all over the world. And so like you were talking about when you went into the military, and it was very diverse by
yes.
being able to just be online and reach anybody anywhere in the world. I mean, the diversity of our world has just gotten huge, you
It
know?
has.
Yeah, and so that's one of the things that I am grateful for COVID for, because before COVID, things were not as accessible or normalized, by doing Zooms and all of that stuff. It changed so much during that process. And so, although I know there's a lot of things that were not good that came from COVID, but there are things that were good. And my job for me always is to see any adversity that pops up and find some kind of good in it, because I can either focus on the things that light me up and make me feel good and expand my life, or I can focus on the things that are wrong in the world and the things that people have done wrong. I can focus either which way. And so I love being around people who feel the need or the desire to be looking at the good and figuring out the lessons in whatever happens. And so, and you are one of those people, you
Mm,
know.
Thank you. Thank you. But I totally agree with you about COVID. I heard it said once that things don't happen to us, they happen for us. Now, I kind of don't like saying that when it comes to COVID because I lost family members,
Hmm.
and that was sad. But had it not happened, as you said, we would probably not be on a virtual in a virtual world. And my life has expanded so much just because of that. I probably never would have been introduced to storytelling in the capacity that I am now. And the podcasting, I am so in love with that. It, meeting people to interview, it is so amazing. And it's not people next door, but all over. And
Hmm.
it's not having to say, okay, well, we have to meet somewhere for the interview. It's just hop on Zoom and do the
Yeah.
interview and be in Atlanta or Maryland or Ohio or wherever they are.
Yeah.
And and we're now face to face. And it's like I never would have expanded my reach had
Yeah.
it not been for this. And I am so amazed. Now, you said earlier that people kind of want you to stay in this little mold of what they think. My okay, my youngest son is 10 and 14 years younger than my two older ones.
Hmm.
So he's my biggest supporter. And maybe because I am so not tech and I'm always calling on him. So yeah, he's around. But my two older ones, I've tried to to share with them some of the things I am doing. And it's like, you mom, you're not doing that. So they don't know anything about me. They don't know I have a podcast. They
Isn't
don't
that
know.
interesting?
Yes. But the little guy is like, okay, mom, what episode are you on now? Who are you interviewing now, mom? So it is, I just chuckle. And so he said, well, when are you going to really tell them and give them the link? I said, I don't know. Maybe when I hit 30 or 60 episodes, I'll just send them a link and say, you might want to listen to this. So, yeah, they just think I am mom. I'm mom,
Hmm.
I'm grandma, and that's where I am.
Yeah.
And so, okay, okay. So yeah, it
Yeah.
is. It's
I see
interesting.
that. Um,
Yeah.
and so, and I love doing my podcast. And luckily, both of my kids know that I do the podcast. Now, they don't ask me a lot of questions, but they know, like my daughter lives with me. So when it comes time for a podcast, if she's here, I'll say, I'm going into the office and I'm going to be doing a podcast. So she knows, don't knock on the door, don't come in or anything like that.
Mhm.
And then, like, I had a phone call from my brother. He's 11 years younger than me, and he called me earlier today just to talk. And one of the things he asked me is, "How's the podcast going? How many episodes you got now?" That kind of stuff. So it's really cool that they can see me in a different light than where I've been before,
Yeah.
and they just that's just the way it is. So but it wasn't always that way, so it's just been a gradual process where they really come on board with the all the things that I have going all the time.
Um, but we shall see how my kids go.
Yep, yep, yep. Well, you've got this. You've got this. So, what's the name of your podcast? Make sure you tell everybody.
The name of my podcast is Your Life Over 50 and is on Spotify and Apple Podcasts.
All right, beautiful. And so, everybody that's watching or listening, I will be putting everything in the description. I'll put links of every place that you can reach out to Jean. I'll have information about her podcast. So, you can look at the description and see how to connect with Jean very easily. So, before we go, because we're at time, is there anything that before we got on here, I know you had sent me a message, what are we going to talk about? And I said, I don't know, we'll just talk. So, is there anything that you had in your mind that you thought, oh, when I'm on that podcast, I want to share this? And maybe I haven't asked. So, was there anything in particular that you wanted to share? Or maybe there's something that comes up now as we're talking that, yes, I want to share this before we get off.
Not really. I ask you the question because most times there's a theme or something, and folks want you to kind of think on that. And I thought, Vicky didn't tell me, so I'm just going on in the raw. So
Yeah, yeah.
conversational is fine. Now, I did think at one point she will probably ask you to tell a story, but then I forgot because at the time when I thought about it, I thought, oh yeah, I could tell her about the time I froze on stage. I could tell her that one. But when you ask, and I had totally forgotten, it's like the only thing was sitting in my head was my roommate. I don't know. Maybe I'm hungry. I don't know.
You're
Yeah.
revisiting that, her taking your food.
Yes. So no, but I would like to say thank you very much for inviting me to be your guest because I have had a very, I think this is a word to use, a very delicious time
Yes.
being here. And I really thank you. And I thank you. I
Oh,
thank you.
well, thank you for agreeing to be here because this has been so fun. And I love that now I know you on a different level than I've known before. So this is glorious. So before we leave, I'm going to leave everybody with the quote that I always leave everybody with. And I hate to admit it, but I still don't know who said it. I went and looked at one point and I knew, but then I forgot. So it's just what it is. So the quote is the best way to predict the future is create it. And to me, that is the perfect ending to every single episode that I've had. So, with that said, have an amazing day and I'll see you soon. Mwah.